What's good with the world, everyone? This is Sirasonilynx here, about to give you guys part 2, 102 Harmor 102 on octave and hertz distributions. Alright, so today's topic might be a little bit difficult for you guys to understand, so I try to get my head around and try to explain it to you the best way I can, and be free to ask me any questions. Harmor is, I think a lot of the times they could have improved with the interface, could have made it more, easier to understand and stuff, but it is what it is. So let's get right at it. So if you actually look closely at Harmor, you'll see with the octave, 6 or 7 switches with the octave and hertz distribution. So you got this one right here. If you guys notice, if I click this, the timbre, they change as well. I'll explain in a second. You got it on the filters right over here, 4 on the filters, you got 1 on the phaser, and then you got 1 in this window right here. For people that don't know, octave and hertz difference is basically the same way to measure like the range of frequencies, the same way too. So our human hearings, we say we could hear from 20 to 20k, right? 20 to 20,000. And if you guys open up parametric EQ, fruity parametric, you guys could see on the top right here, you got the octaves. You got C1, C2, C2, and on the bottom you see all of this. And at the top, if you, on the left corner, if you go, this 20,000 right up here, and on the bottom is 20 hertz right on the bottom. You see how the octaves are all the same width. So C1 is the same width as C2 and C3 and C4 and C5 and C6. This is actually what we call an octave distribution. And by that, what it means is, so this is exponential distribution. So, or logarithmic is the same thing. Basically, so if you see it, I told you guys it's from 20 to 20,000, right? Then every time it doubles exponentially as it grows. That means from, if you actually see the middle of the graph is somewhere around like 800, like somewhere between 500 to 1k. That means from 1k to 20k, which is 10,900, you're getting all of that into the latter half of it, versus the first half you're only getting 1,000, 1,000 different hertz. So it's an exponential curve. I don't know if you guys remember it from algebra class, so here's a picture to explain it. A linear response on one hand has a 1-to-1 ratio. So when this is 1, when x is 1, y is 1. When x is 2, y is 2. When x is 3, y is 3, so on and so forth. This is the hertz distribution. Exponential response is basically, in algebra class we learned y equals x squared, right? Or you could put that in logarithmic form, same thing. And basically, let's say for example I have 2, then let's say it's like around 2, but when I get to 4, then it's already, it's already past the number, and it goes up more, as we go up, so it increases. That's why we get a graph that looks like this, or in Harmor, we get a graph that looks like this, okay? This is the octave distribution. But in Harmor, you could change this a little bit. Let me explain this a little bit more in detail so you guys can understand. If I play a low note in Harmor, can you guys see how the harmonics get squished all the way up? This is because of the octave distribution, because of the exponential distribution. So more notes are in the top as we go up. Remember the curve? All right, but you could change this by pressing hertz, and then they'll give you a view like this. And then you guys could see that the harmonics are all distributed evenly. This is the octave distribution versus the hertz distribution. You guys can see normally they're set in a certain way, but the harmonics are shown evenly in the octave versus the hertz distributions. All right, it's just a different way of showing it here for the viewers over here. On the other hand, if we go over here to pitch and we press octave or hertz, like I told you before, the timbre window changes. Normally, it's in hertz mode. And this means that in hertz mode, you know, the pitches are coming out. You know, pitches are represented by hertz, right? You get A, which is equal to 440, and then an A octave below is 220, an A octave above 440 is 880, octave above that is 1600, 1760, you know, so on and so forth, right? So you're getting this kind of distribution because instead of putting it in a linear mode, you're deciding to put it in a, you know, or vice versa, you know. That's why you get the harmonic distribution of sounds. All the harmonics are equally put into each one, you know. So normally we have, remember we talked about last lesson, we talked about the fundamental frequency, and then we talked about how there's overtones, right, or harmonics on top of it, and then there's the fundamental frequency is the lowest, and then you have an octave above, which is the first harmonic. You have the fifth, which is the second harmonic. You have the octave above that, which is the third harmonic, and so on and so forth. As you can see, this is the first fundamental, octave above, fifth from here, octave from the second. So this is the fourth. This is the third harmonic, and so on and so forth, right? If we do it in pitch, however, all the harmonics are evenly distributed. That means in every octave, there's a set number of harmonics, you know, and you guys could probably see. I think there's seven harmonics in each of the octaves, you know, in every one of the octaves, and that's the way to do it. For here on the filters, it's basically a curve. I don't know if you guys have used other EQs before, but they have this thing called octave, you know, like octave by decibel, right? When you're trying to keep the slope together. So let's say, for example, you go to the slope here, and you have 12 decibels per octave, which gives you this kind of smooth slope. If you select 48, it becomes steeper, 96, even more steeper, right? This happens because they're saying that over a certain amount of over decibels of time, there's an octave, you know, there's a, over one octave, they're going to have 96 decibels falling. That's the point of having distributions on filters in an octave decibel way. On the other hand, they put it in this octave, like hertz distribution. And actually this one is not very easy to notice the difference of why it's exactly here. And I still don't really understand why they put it, because if they actually put this here, then you should have like a way for me to dial in the actual hertz numbers, sort of like Citrus, but there's nothing like that. So I think they just put it here just for bragging rights. That's the way I see it, because you never find a filter that does this kind of distribution. Hertz distribution, according to filters, is very surgical, you could be very accurate with it, you know, and this has a lot to do with the fact that Harmor is a very powerful additive synthesis, you know, and this is possible. There's a very slight difference. Let me try to show you guys what the difference is. So you can see the octave is more smoother. Has a smoother curling off point than the hertz. Same with the resonance as well. So you you get a more surgical resonance on the hertz versus the octave. And finally, on the phasers, you get how the phaser works. So normally on a phaser, this is how a phaser will work, right? And you could tell this is the octave distribution because if you actually look on the graph right over here, it's an even distribution, right? It shows evenly, but here it's showing exponentially, right? Versus if I put it in hertz, you can see that this is the exponential growth. It gets tighter and tighter as it goes up, right? Here you can see it in the graph. It's even. So by this, you guys could tell what the octave and hertz buttons do in Harmor and how to exactly get around it. It's really not that much of a big deal. For the most part, you're just going to have it in default view, I guess, unless you want to make strange noises, which is all the good for synthesizers. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm having a song being released, remix released this coming Friday, so watch out for that. So till next time, deuces.